the panel about the media world, let's face it, is those front offices are largely lots of tall white men, straight white men in many cases. There aren't as many women, though more than there used to be. Not a whole lot of people of color, though more than there used to be. What about that perspective? When you look around the table, when you look around those meeting tables, how has that tapestry of people changed in the media business?
Well, I actually think it's changed a lot. I think that from what we're seeing on television and truly a real authentic reflection of our lives more than ever, to, you know, where I work, I mean, our CEO is a woman and many women and gay people are running the company. That would never, I couldn't have imagined that happening 20 years ago when I was debating whether to come out or not. Look, there's always more that can be done, but I actually feel like there's been great progress.
Let's talk a little bit about how technology has changed the media game as well. It's no longer just one media platform, you know, whether it's nonfiction or fictional content, it's a transmedia game. People are consuming content in so many different ways. How does that change the way the stories are told and the way people are interacting with the content on the other end is very, very different. So, I mean, Jane, from your perspective, as someone who is presenting all this information to people, do you have to think about where you're reaching out to people?
Totally. I think it's made it more democratic. It used to be, look, our textbooks when I went to journalism school were just all white men in white shirts and black ties, and there were no women to be found. Yeah. Well, I think they're kind of even back now. That's how old they are. But yeah, we've gotten a lot more diverse in newsrooms, and that is so crucial. And it's crucial from a perspective of sexual orientation as well as race and gender and ethnicity, because these are the people who decide what's news and what's not news. And so the great thing about having all these other platforms is that now other people can decide, hey, this is news. And there are people who say to me, will you do this story? And I said, well, sometimes, oh, we can't get it in. Then you see it popping up on blogs, and you'll see it popping up on YouTube, and you'll see it popping up on all sorts of other platforms, and all of a sudden it reaches a critical mass, and I call them back and go, hey, that's a good story, I would like to do it. There are so many stories like that. And so that's all great for gay rights. And it's also great when we have organizations that respond very quickly to something that's homophobic on the air. Wherever you see it, it's very important to have a response system that's immediate, because once that story goes away, it's gone. And nobody's going to do a reaction about a story that was big on Monday on Thursday. That story might as well have happened 100 years ago. So it's really important that the organizations, whether it's GLAAD or HRC or any of these other fantastic organizations, that they have a rapid response team that immediately targets something that's homophobic so that it doesn't get to just pass out through the airwaves unchallenged and go away. And it still happens. And I see it all the time. And so I think that's really one of our big challenges, is to have a rapid response team so that when this homophobia comes up, we respond.
You know, when we launched Logo 5.5 years ago, we launched in a multimedia world. We knew that the world was changing, and it's certainly happened very quickly in 5.5 years. But when we launched, we were only in 13 million homes, which meant that, you know...
Which sounds like a lot, but in broadcast, it's not that big.
You know, most broadcast networks are in 100 million homes, just for perspective. So most of the country wouldn't be able to watch our shows, but for online. And so we made a very concerted effort early on to make sure all of our content was online, so that those people that couldn't watch it on television can now watch it elsewhere on other platforms. And that's been incredibly helpful to us. We're now in 50 million homes, which means that still 50% of the country can't watch us on television yet. And so we wanted to make sure that content was consumable wherever they were, whenever they wanted. So we're on, you know, we're on mobile, we're online, and we're on television. It's been great for our business.
And Jane, you brought up an interesting point about how stories pass on. But thanks to technology, stories also can get a life of their own, to the point of the horrible stories about so many teen suicides and bullying, what happened to Tyler Clementi, and all of these stories that have gotten far greater attention. You know, we can look even outside the LGBT community to the news in Egypt and social media's role in bringing that story. So how does that play into the game? How do you try to keep up with all of it and try to balance the voices? Because at the end of the day, when you're looking at these social media platforms and technology, they're not necessarily vetted sources. They're not necessarily professional sources, so you also have to vet some of that content as you're considering how to integrate it with what you're creating.
Wow. I would say it was funny because we were looking at some things from Egypt, and there were graphics that come up, cannot verify the source of this information. It was like somebody setting a car on fire and like 100,000 people protesting. I'm like, I don't think this could have been staged, frankly. So I don't know how much that needs to be vetted. Okay, maybe they have to figure out, verify which country it's happening in. But I just think it's wonderful. I think that all this technology is really, again, allowed democracy to take place in a very organic way. I find it just so ironic that we've spent so many billions and billions and billions, what, it's up to $1 trillion, trying to impose our will in across the world with these wars, and yet it was really some kids who came up with Facebook and Twitter who are the ones who are bringing democracy to the Middle East. Isn't that ironic? And if we'd only taken all that money and put it into education here domestically and switching to reusable resources and reducing our dependence on oil, if we had done, imagine what we had done with that money. If we knew then what we knew now was basically Twitter and Facebook were going to change the face of the Middle East, not us sending all these troops in to die. Pretty interesting. That's political. It's not about LGBT, although I'm so happy to see Dan here, one of my heroes. Woo! But, okay.
I mean, I like to think about it as, you know, content is still king, but the monarchy has collapsed because all of a sudden the content's being created by so many different people, not just by a small group of probably white men sitting in a room deciding what we all see.
No disrespect to the white men. I accept it.
None at all. None at all. But I really do think that it has been the democratization of content. Now, that's a double-edged sword, right? I mean, the blogosphere works for us and it works against us. I mean, there are times when there's a story about a show or something that's going on that is helpful to us, we love it. Yesterday, when Perez Hilton suggested who the winner of RuPaul's Drag Race was to all of his people, that wasn't so good. But, you know, you sort of take the good with the bad.
Paris Hilton did something unexpected and it wasn't
understand.
good. Shocking. Shocking. So, Lisa, Logo's a relatively, kind of relatively new network that has grown at a time when other networks have been cutting back and advertising revenue is drying up across the board, and you guys are growing leaps and bounds. Secret sauce?
We're a scrappy bunch. That is what I will say. You know, Logo is, we've created a real culture of, it's sort of a mission-driven culture. And, you know, people come to work every day because they love it. And I think when, you know, a small group of people get together and have their eye on a much bigger prize, it is amazing what can get done. I am humbled every day to come to work with the people that I come to work with. And, you know, we do things, you know, really on a shoestring, and we've been able to make it work. We went from 13 million homes to 50. We've gone from 3 advertisers to 250 plus. And we're just, you know, we just keep going. The little engine that could.
I just want to compliment you because what Logo has done is so fabulous. A part of the challenge that we face is that heterosexuality is really drilled into us from early childhood, and all the big movies or the themes are all very hetero-oriented. And so it's really great to see content that offers an alternative for people who are born gay, and they can see themselves reflected in that content. And so you guys are putting out all these great stories that would not see the light of day. And that's really so important. It's not just what's happening in the news, the side of it, but it's also the fictional side of it. And I think it's great, and I watch it.
I think there's something really powerful about having images of yourself reflected back at you from television. I think people of color felt that way when a channel like BET came on, and there weren't those images across, you know, in any mass way. I think for the LGBT community to have our stories told in a very authentic way, and not sort of being the center of the joke or the object of the joke. You know, we have our own we have humor, but not being the butt of the humor. That's really what the channel has allowed us to do in terms of storytelling.